Okay, good morning, everyone. We're continuing in Sefer Ahavas Yisroel, the series dedicated by the Harris family of Cleveland, Leila Nishmas, with Moshe Hauer, Moshe Yisrael, Ben Harav Ben Yamin, who was a paragon of the ideal of the Sefer. Okay, I want to bring to your attention a few things that we learned yesterday that interested me. First of all, the Chafetz Chaim quoted a Sefer that I don't remember that we encountered that he's quoted. Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem. Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem. We know the Rambam has a Sefer Mitzvahs. We know the Ramban, the Smag, the Smak. What is Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem? Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem was written by Rav Baruch Halpern of Skahal. I think it's a more recent Sefer. When I say recent, obviously it's before the times of the Chafetz Chaim, but it's a likut based on the Rambam, the Ramban, the Smak, and the Smag, as he writes on his title page. Okay, so it's interesting that the Chafetz Chaim is quoting it, and I want to focus on a few points that he said yesterday. The Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem said the mitzvah of not to hate a kosher Jew in your heart is learned out of the pasuk Lo sisnas achicha b'lvavecha. And then he says, and he's really citing the Rambam, that the Torah only warns sinna belev. But if you go over to your friend with a baseball bat, or you verbally assault him, you're not a good guy. You might be over other lavin. You're not over the lav loisisna achicha b'vavecha. Right? That's what we learned yesterday. Loisisna achicha b'vavecha is animosity in your heart. If you go over and you hurt someone physically, verbally, you're not over this lav. So I was bothered yesterday. This flies in the face of what we learned in Sefer Chafetz Chaim. Sefer Chafetz Chaim said, if you badmouth somebody, you speak lashon hara, you're over the lav of loisisna achicha b'vavecha. But I thought we're learning here that it's only if it's animosity in your heart. So why did the Chafetz Chaim and Sefer Chafetz Chaim say you're over if you speak lashon hara? So I want to read to you the words of the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim says, "V'lefamim over hamasaper gam kein belav to loisisna achicha bilvavecha." Sometimes the speaker is over the lav loisisna achicha bilvavecha. Kagoin, for example, in bifanav shalom yidab Yisroel. If you go over to your friend, Shalom Aleichem, I'm so happy to see you. It's such a pleasure to be in your presence. And not in his presence, you badmouth him. Certainly, certainly, if you explicitly command the people you tell to, don't go and tell Pliny what I said about him, so at first glance, it seems like it's a contradiction, because here the Chafetz Chaim is citing the Rambam that you're only over the lav with animosity in your heart, and in Sefer Chafetz Chaim he says that if you badmouth your friend, you're over on loisisna achicha bilvavecha. So in the Ber Mayim Chaim, the Chafetz Chaim explains, he doesn't ask this contradiction, but he says it's not a contradiction at all. Why? Because the Gemara in Erechin identifies that the parameter of leisisna achicha b'vavecha is sinna belev, and it's brought in the Rambam in Mada Perak Vav Halacha Hey. The Rambam says makeh chaveroi mecharfoi, even though you're not allowed to, you're not over leisisna. Says the Chafetz Chaim, that's only if you shame him in his presence. Because if you hit him in his presence or you shame him in his presence, the guy knows you hate him and he could guard himself. He could watch out. He could be careful. So the point is, the the focus is that if you let him know that you hate him, then you're not over this lav. Why? Because yada chaveroi eich lihishamer mimenu. However, if you just hate him in your heart, then you're over on this lav, the Chafetz Chaim says, because something worse could happen, because he doesn't know that you hate him. So therefore, it says the Chafetz Chaim. So, if you hate him in your heart, and it comes to fruition, namely, you badmouth him not in his presence, so that's not better. You have animosity in your heart, and he doesn't know about it. So it's not that automatically when you do something, you're not over leisisnas chibavecha. You're not over leisisnas chibavecha if you do something and he knows about it. But if he doesn't know about it, then of course you're over leisisnas chibavecha. It's not worse when the hatred in your heart comes out and you cause him harm. It's only that if you cause him harm and he knows about it, you're not over leisisnas chibavecha. But if there's animosity in your heart and he doesn't know about it, then you would definitely violate loisisna es achicha bevavecha. The Chavetz Chaim in the Ber Mayim Chaim says it's what we call tarti ligriusa, that the sinna was gavar ad shapolta lechutz, and number two, meaning the sinna came to a head and it came to something that materialized, and number two, your friend doesn't know how to guard himself. And then the Chavetz Chaim says, I found in the Sefer Mitzvah, so the Rambam, in Mitzvah Shin Beis, that when you show him the sinna, you're not over on this lav. That implies if you don't show him the sinna, even though you're doing an action, you are over on this lav. Okay? So this Rambam that the Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem is citing, that Shvaloi his hira Torah b'lav zeh ala sinna shebalev, but maka chaveru umacharfai eno over b'lav zeh. Let's just qualify. That's mecharfai when he knows about it. But if mecharfai and he doesn't know about it, you are over leisisnas achicha bevavecha. But I want to point out that the Mefarshim on Sefer Chavetz Chaim say that this is the shita of the Rambam, which is also the shita of the Chinuch and also the shita of the Smag. But the Stipler Goin in Masechta Makkos Siman Tez Zayin is medayik from many Rishonim who argue on the Rambam, and they hold even if you hit your friend or you shame him out of hatred, you are over leisisnas achicha bevavecha. Again, the Rambam doesn't hold that way. The Chavetz Chaim doesn't hold that way. But many Rishonim, the Stiplers say, do hold that way. Primarily the Ramban in Kedoshim. The Ramban in Kedoshim says, Diber Hakasuv b'hoiveh. When it says leisisnas achicha bevavecha, it's just talking about a typical scenario. Most people, they're too embarrassed to let their friend know about it. But if you do, you're still over, the Ramban says. Again, the Chavetz Chaim doesn't codify this way, but Rav Binyamin Cohen, in his commentary on Sefer Chavetz Chaim, says the shiltus is mashma. If you tell your friend you hate him, you're certainly over on the lav. That's the way the Netziv learns the shiltus, not like the Rambam. And the Netziv says it depends on the Gersa and Erechin. The above mentioned Kilas Yaakov, in the new editions of the Kilas Yaakov is Siman Aleph. He says Rashi is mashma, not like that, and the Ravid is mashma, not like that. Anyway, okay, I just wanted to clarify. I didn't want to leave it fuzzy. Okay, so you got it. Halacha l'maisa. If you have animosity to a Jew, a kosher Jew in your heart, you're over a lav leisisnas achicha bevavecha. If you have animosity in your heart and you badmouth the Jew and he doesn't know about it, you're over leisisnas achicha bevavecha. If you tell him I hate you, the Chavetz Chaim is mekel that even though you're over other lavin, you're not over leisisnas achicha bevavecha. But many Rishonim disagree with that. But the Chavetz Chaim does not quote those Rishonim. Okay. Let's begin the next idea with the following intro. And that is that we have 613 body parts, 248 limbs, and 365 gidim, sanyus. And each one of the limbs correspond to mitzvah saseh, and each one of the gidim correspond to a loy saseh. When you fulfill a mitzvah saseh, you sanctify your physical limb, and thereby your spiritual limb. When you are careful not to violate a lav, you preserve your physical sinews, and thereby your spiritual sinews. When you keep all the mitzvahs, uzachartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem v'yisem kedoshim le'elokechem. The pasuk says, Laman tizkeru va'asisem es kol mitzvosai v'yisem kedoshim le'elokechem. If you want to be holy, you got to keep the mitzvahs. However, there are going to be certain mitzvahs that have more of a overarching effect on the sanctity of the body. So let's read this paragraph and then we'll continue tomorrow. When you contemplate well the namek and we look deeply, to investigate the byproducts of this sin. We will see that a person draws upon himself through this sin a spirit of impurity on himself. It is known through each limb that we perform a mitzvah, shayra alav ruach kedusha, a spirit of sanctity dwells on a person. Umamela by fulfilling all the mitzvahs, niskadesh kol gufay shel adam, you sanctify the whole body of man. Kedachsiv laman tizkeru, like it says, and you should remember. V'asisem es kol mitzvosai, and perform all the mitzvahs. V'hisem kedoshim le'elokechem, and you will be holy to Hashem. But imagine if a person would sin with an aver that his whole organism depends on, like the heart. That could be spiritually lethal. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, friends. Have a great day. Kol tov.